guys, it's Sarah, and today I'm bringing to you a list of my least favorite books that I read in 2016. Overall, 2016 was not my best reading year because most of the books I read I either really didn't like or I just thought they were okay. There weren't very many books that I loved, so I'm hoping I can change that in 2017. So yeah, let's just get into this list. Honestly, it's not in any particular order, and I hate all these books for different reasons, and if they're your favorite books, good for you. They're just not my favorite books. They just disappointed me in various ways. So the first book is a classic, and that is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by whatever his name is that wasn't J.K. Rowling. I think many Harry Potter fans can agree in saying that Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is literally an offense to the other 7 books and should not be included as part of the series or as canon. I personally just like to pretend like it didn't happen. I actually have a whole live show dedicated to what I didn't like about this book. I'll link that down below. Honestly, it makes me kind of upset to even talk about this book. I thought all of the original Harry Potter characters did not act like themselves. It was really weird. Harry was a really bad dad. Albus was a whiny brat. Scorpius was the only good character in all of the book. But then there was just like queer baiting, and I can't even. Just watch the live show if you want to know why we didn't like it, because it wasn't good. The next on my list was especially bad, and that is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. November 9 is about a young girl named Fallon who was in a very serious fire a few years before the book starts, and so she is heavily disfigured from being in that accident. In the beginning of the book, she's out to dinner with her dad, and they're arguing about her acting career, and her dad's telling her that she can't act anymore because of her disfiguration, and she wants to move to New York, and blah blah blah. So this guy named Ben comes on over and sits with her in the booth and pretends to be her boyfriend, and they end up spending the day together, and then they decide that every November 9 they're going to get together and like relive their one-day romance. This book was very problematic. Ben was a very alpha male character who basically tells Fallon what to do all the time, and she is very insecure because of her disfiguration, and so she kind of just does whatever he asks of her, and it's just not good. I actually recommend reading Whitney from Witty Novels' Goodreads review. I'll link that down below. She literally pinpointed all of the problematic scenes. She honestly noticed even more than I did. I kind of guiltily enjoyed this book a little bit when I was reading it because it kind of reads like a very, very terrible Lifetime movie. It's super dramatic. The romance is really unrealistic. It's just really awkward and cringy, and I think Whitney was able to take it apart and kind of point out how actually harmful and problematic that it is. So like I said, I'll just link that down below for you guys. One of the cringiest things for me was that Fallon would not stop referring to Ben as the only man that had ever been inside her. And then we have My Heart in Other Black Holes by Jasmine Warga. This book was really upsetting because it had a lot of promise. I really, really liked it when I started reading it. It's about this girl named Azelle who's suicidal, and so she goes on to a message board and finds a suicide partner, and it's this guy that lives a couple towns over, and so they come together and like plan their suicide, and things happen and they kind of like become really close. The reason this book bothered me so much is because I feel like it sent the message that love can fix your depression. Also, I feel like it perpetuated the belief that something really terrible has to have happened to you for you to be depressed. Both of them had really traumatic, terrible backstories which made them suicidal. But honestly, that's just not how depression works. It doesn't matter how good or bad your life is. People are depressed for all different sorts of reasons, and I just didn't buy this book. I didn't buy the story, and it was just really upsetting because the representation in the beginning seemed really good, and I was like, this is really exciting to be reading something about mental health and it be really good, and then the depiction just went really south, and honestly I just feel like it's more of a damaging book than a helpful book. Next on our list is The Adoration of Jenna Fox by Mary E. Pearson. I barely remember this book. It's about a girl named Jenna who wakes up from being in a coma, and she knows something is wrong because her parents are acting super weird, and she has no memories from her life, and she just doesn't know who she is or what she is. And honestly, you'd think that the mystery of her trying to figure out what happened to her would be compelling, but it wasn't. And she finds out pretty early what's going on, but then the story keeps going and it doesn't make any sense, and all the characters are very one-dimensional, and it's just not a good time. It's just, honestly, like, skip it. It just wasn't good. I wanted it to be over the whole time I was reading it, but I just kept going because I read The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson, which I really liked, but this one wasn't good. And then we have Walk on Earth a Stranger by Ray Carson. This book was really disappointing because I was really looking forward to it. It's about a young girl who can sense gold, and it's during the era of the gold rush, and so she dresses up as a boy to travel west and escape her crazy uncle. I really thought it was gonna be really good because it's just really unique. I like historical fiction. I thought it would be cool to read a book set during the gold rush, but it was absurdly slow, like so slow. It's kind of a road trip story because they're traveling west. Crazy stuff kept happening to them while they were on the road, but I just couldn't bring myself to care. That's all I can say about it. It just wasn't good. Next on our list we have Vinegar Girl, and I honestly don't even really remember the author's name, and I don't care. This was probably one of the worst books I've ever read in my life. It was a retelling of Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew. I've never read the play, so I can't really speak to how faithful of an adaptation it is. It's about a woman who is in her 30s and she kind of just has a bad attitude of everything. I guess she's the shrew that needs to be tamed. And her dad is this scientist who has a lab partner who's going to be sent to his home country if he doesn't get a better visa to stay in the country. So her dad comes up with this idea to make them get married. It just like wasn't written very well. Like none of the characters or the interactions made any sense, and there was a lot of gender stereotyping in it that made me really frustrated. Like there was a lot of talk about how women should be doing like housework and how men should stay out of it and let women take care of the home, and then at the end of the book the main girl character like stands up and makes this speech about how like men have it harder than women because they're not allowed to be emotional and they're not allowed to cry or feel things. I just felt like that's not necessarily true that men have it harder than women, although I do agree that men should be able to express themselves. But it was just really weird, and I didn't believe the romance, and I didn't really care about the characters. The only reason I finished it was because I was listening to it on audiobook and it was only 8 hours long, and I was like, it has to get better than this. It has to. And the author won a Pulitzer Prize like in the 80s. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good book. And then it wasn't. The next book on my list was honestly one of the most disappointing things, and that was A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. For those of you who don't know, An Ember in the Ashes was on my favorites list in 2015, and I was super excited for the sequel. I got an arc of it. It was signed by Sabaa Tahir. Super stoked to read it. And then it was not good. It was so slow. I could care less about what was happening to the characters. Some serious weird shit happened in the book that made me literally be like, is that really what we're gonna do with the characters? Is that really, did I just really read that? I don't know. Also, it was announced that this is supposed to be now a 4-book series rather than a trilogy, and I just don't think I'm gonna put myself through all that to keep reading because this one was just so slow, and it was honestly upsetting because the writing style was still good and the characters were the same, but like I just didn't care about them the way I did in the first book, which made me very sad. The last book on my list is possibly one of the worst books I've ever read in my whole entire life, and that is Dream House by Cutie Pie Marzia. Let me tell you, I have a full review on this book because the publisher sent it to me and I was required to make a video. It is a 1-star book review, and recently it's been getting a lot of views, and I have an absurd amount of hate comments on that video because Marzia has like 6 million subscribers, so they're really salty that I didn't like the book because I made fun of it pretty hard. It's about this girl named Amethyst who sees this house, and it's basically her dream house, and so she gets invited to dinner by the people who own it, and so she stays over for dinner, and when she wakes up in the morning they're not there anymore and she can't find them, so she stays in this house and it's haunted, and she kind of has to figure out what happened. But the writing style was just really bad, and the plot didn't make any sense. It was just literally one of those WTF reads, like how did this get published? And I don't know if it was written in Italian first because that's Marzia's native language, and then just maybe the translation was bad. And I stand by everything I said in the review. People keep saying that I was really mean because I made fun of it. I basically likened it to a free movie you can rent on Comcast because it was that bad. It was just like a D-list horror movie adaptation. It was just so bad. And I honestly stand by what I said. It was god awful. Do not waste your time unless you're like looking for a laugh. But that's pretty much it for all the books that severely disappointed me this year. If you look at my Goodreads, there's a lot of other books that were just kind of meh as well, but I didn't think they belonged on this list because they weren't like that bad and I didn't have that bad of a time reading them. The only reason I included these books is because the reading experience was literally like, why? Like, why is this happening to me? But that's pretty much it for the disappointing books of 2016. Let me know down below any books that you might have hated. I'm sorry if any of these books are your fave ever. Good for you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day. I know I'm being super vague in this video, just saying I don't really like these books, but honestly, I don't even remember because they made me so upset. Like, so upset. Literally, as we speak, I just got a hate comment on that Marta video, and someone said, "Let me review that lipstick and makeup. Holy shit, may the Lord have mercy on her."